Arsenal Daily News, Tino Livramento Transfer Analysis. Hello and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. Today we have some really interesting transfer news to discuss that could have major implications for Arsenal's defensive options heading into next season. We're going to be talking about Tino Livramento, the Newcastle United fullback who has caught the attention of both Arsenal and Manchester City. Before we dive deep into this story, I want to make it clear that according to The Sun, this is transfer speculation at this stage. Arsenal are reportedly prepared to compete with Manchester City to sign Livramento during the summer transfer window. So keep that in mind as we go through all the details. Let me start by giving you some context about Arsenal's current defensive situation, because this is crucial to understanding why the club might be looking at someone like Livramento. Last summer, Arsenal made some significant moves to strengthen their backline. The Gunners brought in two players, Christian Mosquera and Piero Hincapié. Now, Hincapié joined Arsenal on loan from Bayer Leverkusen, and this is not just a simple loan deal. It comes with a conditional obligation to buy, which means under certain conditions Arsenal will be required to make the transfer permanent. Both Mosquera and Hincapié are naturally central defenders. That is their primary position. However, and this is important, they both have the versatility to operate in the fullback positions as well. Mosquera can play at right back, and Hincapié can slot in at left back when needed. This kind of versatility is clearly something that manager Mikel Arteta values in his squad. But despite adding these two versatile defenders last summer, Arsenal are apparently not done strengthening their defensive options. The club is eyeing another versatile fullback, and according to The Sun, they are prepared to go head-to-head with Manchester City for Tino Livramento when the current campaign comes to an end. So who exactly is Tino Livramento? He is a 23-year-old fullback currently playing for Newcastle United. What makes him particularly attractive to top clubs is his versatility. Livramento has shown that he can perform at a high level in both the right back and left back positions. In today's game, that kind of flexibility is incredibly valuable. Now, let's talk about his contract situation, because this is a key factor in why he might be available. When the summer transfer window opens, Livramento will be entering the last 2 years of his contract with Newcastle United. This puts the Magpies in an interesting position. They could choose to offer him a new deal to extend his stay at the club, but if they cannot agree on a renewal, they might be tempted to cash in on him rather than risk losing him for a reduced fee later or even on a free transfer when his contract expires. According to the report, Livramento could be available for around £60 million. That is a substantial fee, but in today's inflated transfer market, it reflects both his quality and his potential. For a versatile, young, Premier League proven fullback, that price tag is not unexpected. Let me tell you why Arsenal might be interested in adding another fullback despite their recent signings. The article points out that Arsenal have the strongest defensive depth in the Premier League this campaign. That is quite a statement, and it speaks to the work Mikel Arteta and the club have done in building up their defensive options. At right back, Arsenal currently have Jurrien Timber and Ben White as their primary options. Mosquera can also play there when he is fit, giving Arteta 3 potential right backs to choose from. On paper, that looks like excellent depth. On the left side, the options are equally impressive. Ricardo Calafiori, Piero Hincapié, and Miles Lewis-Skelly are all available to play at left back. Again, 3 quality options for one position. So if Arsenal already have such strong defensive depth, why would they be looking at Livramento? The article suggests a few reasons, and they make a lot of sense when you think about it. First, let's talk about Ben White. According to the report, White has been plagued by injuries and inconsistent form for the last 18 months. This is significant. While White is a talented player, if he cannot stay fit and maintain consistent performances, it creates a problem for the manager. During this period, Jurrien Timber has become the first-choice right back for Arsenal. Timber has clearly impressed Arteta and established himself as a preferred option. Given this situation, Arteta may want to bring in stronger competition for places ahead of the 2026-2027 season. Having players compete for positions often brings out the best in everyone. It keeps players sharp, motivated, and prevents anyone from becoming complacent. There is also a possibility that Arsenal could offload Ben White to help finance the purchase of Livramento. This would make sense from both a financial and squad planning perspective. If White is no longer the first choice and has struggled with injuries and form, moving him on and bringing a younger, more versatile option like Livramento could be a smart piece of business. Now, let's look at what Livramento would bring to Arsenal if this transfer were to happen. The statistics mentioned in the article are impressive. This season, Livramento has completed 89% of his passes. That is an excellent passing accuracy for a fullback and shows he is comfortable on the ball and capable of playing out from the back, which is essential in Arteta's system. Defensively, he is also putting up strong numbers. He is averaging 5 recoveries and 3 clearances per game. These statistics show he is active defensively, winning the ball back for his team and deal with danger in his own defensive third. For a modern fullback, you need to be strong both going forward and defending, and these numbers suggest Livramento has both sides of the game covered. The article describes Livramento as having developed into a quality fullback. He started his career in Chelsea's academy before moving to Southampton and then Newcastle United. This journey through different clubs has clearly helped him develop and mature as a player. His versatility is highlighted again when the article mentions his sublime compatibility in both fullback roles. In modern football, having players who can operate on either side gives managers so much more flexibility with team selection, formations, and tactical adjustments during games. But here is where things get interesting and potentially concerning for some Arsenal players. If Livramento were to arrive at the Emirates Stadium, it could have serious implications for the futures of other players in the squad. Let's talk about Miles Lewis-Skelly first. He is a young player who has been given opportunities with the senior squad. According to the article, he has experienced a tough second season with the first team. For most of this season, he has had to play second fiddle to Ricardo Calafari in the left-back position. The article is quite critical of Lewis-Skelly's performances when he has been given opportunities. It states that when he has gotten his chance, he has looked unconvincing, with opposition forwards getting behind him regularly. That is a damning assessment for a young defender. If a player cannot be trusted defensively, it limits how much the manager can use them, especially in important games. If Arsenal were to sign Livramento, who can play on both sides, it would push Lewis-Skelly even further down the pecking order. Currently, he is already behind Calafari on the left. If Livramento arrives and becomes an option on the left side as well, Lewis-Skelly could find himself as 4th or 5th choice. At that point, it might make more sense for him to move on, either on loan or permanently, to get regular playing time and continue his development. The article also suggests that Ben White could be one of the players to depart next summer if Livramento arrives. We already discussed White's injury problems and inconsistent form. If Arsenal can get a good fee for him and reinvest that money into Livramento, who is younger and appears to be more reliable fitness-wise, it could be a logical move. The article concludes by stating that if Livramento were to arrive at the Emirates, it could see one of White or Lewis-Skelly depart next summer. This makes sense when you think about squad balance. You cannot keep too many players in the same positions, especially if some of them are not getting regular playing time. Players need to play to develop and stay sharp. Now, let's take a step back and think about the bigger picture here. Arsenal are clearly building towards something. The defensive additions they made last summer show they are serious about having quality depth across the backline. Adding Livramento would continue that trend. One thing that stands out is Arsenal's focus on versatility. Mascara can play center back or right back. Hincapie can play center back or left back. Livramento can play both right back and left back. This gives Mikel Arteta so many options tactically. He can rotate players, adjust formations, and respond to injuries without a significant drop in quality. The competition with Manchester City for Livramento's signature is also noteworthy. City are one of the best run clubs in world football, and if they are interested in a player, it usually means that player has something special. The fact that Arsenal are prepared to go head-to-head with them shows ambition and confidence. However, competing with Manchester City for transfers is never easy. They have enormous financial resources and the pull of Pep Guardiola and guaranteed Champions League football. Arsenal will need to sell their project to Livramento and convince him that the Emirates is the right place for his development. The £60 million price tag is significant. It shows that Newcastle value Livramento highly and will not let him go cheaply. For Arsenal, this would be a major investment. They would need to be absolutely sure that Livramento is the right player and that he fits into their plans both tactically and in terms of squad harmony. One factor that could work in Arsenal's favor is playing time. If Manchester City signed Livramento, he would be competing with established players for a spot in the team. At Arsenal, depending on who leaves, he might have a clearer path to regular minutes, especially if Ben White is sold. The timing of this potential deal is also interesting. We are talking about a summer transfer, which means there are still several months for situations to change. White could return to form and convince Arteta to keep him. Lewis Skelly could improve dramatically and show he deserves to stay. Newcastle could tie Livramento down to a new long-term contract. Or another club could enter the race and blow everyone out of the water with a massive offer. In transfers, especially ones that are reported months in advance, so many things can change. That is why it is important to remember that this is speculation based on reports from The Sun. Until we see official announcements from the clubs involved, nothing is set in stone. What we can say is that Arsenal are clearly planning ahead. They are identifying targets early, doing their homework, and preparing to move when the window opens. This is smart business. Too often, clubs wait until the window opens and then scramble to get deals done, often overpaying in the process. By identifying Livramento now, Arsenal can plan their approach, prepare their offer, and hopefully get the deal done efficiently if they decide to proceed. From a fan perspective, this is exciting news. It shows ambition. It shows the club is not resting on its laurels despite already having strong defensive depth. If you want to compete for the Premier League title and go deep in the Champions League, you need quality players in every position and strong competition for places. The potential departure of players like White or Lewis Skelly would be sad for their supporters. But this is a reality of elite football. Squads evolve. Players come and go. What matters is that the overall quality of the squad keeps improving. And if replacing White with Livramento achieves that, then it is the right move for the club. So to wrap up today's analysis, Arsenal are reportedly prepared to battle Manchester City for the signing of Newcastle United's Tino Livramento in the summer transfer window. The 23-year-old versatile fullback could cost around £60 million. His arrival could lead to the departure of either Ben White or Miles Lewis Skelly. The deal makes sense given White's injury problems and Arteta's desire for strong competition across his defensive positions. However, this remains speculation at this stage, and we will have to wait and see how things develop over the coming months. Thank you so much for watching Arsenal Daily News. Make sure to subscribe if you have not already. Hit that notification bell so you do not miss any of our videos. And let me know in the comments what you think about this potential transfer. Would you like to see Livramento in an Arsenal shirt? Should the club keep Ben White? Is this the right move for the team? I will see you in the next video. Arsenal Daily News, breaking down the Bradley Barcola transfer saga. Hello, Gooners, and welcome back to Arsenal Daily News. Today we have some absolutely massive news coming out of North London that could reshape Arsenal's attack for years to come. We're talking about a potential record-breaking signing that has got the entire fan base buzzing with excitement. So make sure you stay until the end of this video, because we're going to break down every single detail of this developing story. According to reports from Fishages, Arsenal have open talks with Paris Saint-Germain over a blockbuster deal to sign French international winger Bradley Barcola. Now, before we dive deep into what this could mean for the Gunners, let me be crystal clear about the status of this news. This is currently at the talk stage. Arsenal have initiated contact with PSG, but there is no done deal yet. This is a developing situation, and we need to treat it as such. But here's what makes this story so exciting. Barcola is only 23 years old, and he's already being described as a superstar. He's considered one of the best wingers in world football right now. And the most interesting part? He's apparently keen on making this move to Arsenal. That's huge because when a player of this caliber actually wants to join your club, it changes the entire dynamic of a negotiation. So let's talk about why Barcola might be looking to leave Paris Saint-Germain. And this is where the story gets really interesting. PSG are the European champions. They won the Champions League last season. You would think a young player like Barcola would be thrilled to be part of a team that just conquered Europe. But here's the problem. He's struggling for regular game time. Luis Enrique, the PSG manager, has preferred to go with a front three that includes Ballon d'Or winner Ousmane Dembele plus wingers Desire Doué and Kvaratskhelia when everyone is fit. That's some serious competition. When you're competing with a Ballon d'Or winner and players of that quality, getting consistent minutes becomes incredibly difficult. And for a 23-year-old who should be playing every week to develop his game, this situation is far from ideal. Now, PSG haven't just let this situation develop without trying to fix it. They've actually offered Barcola a new contract. The club clearly values him and wants to keep him. And this is crucial, it's understood that Barcola is considering a new challenge elsewhere. He wants to play more regularly. He wants to reach his full potential. And when you're sitting on the bench at PSG while watching others play, even if you're at the European champions, that potential isn't being realized. This is where Arsenal come into the picture. The reports say that the Gunners are prepared to be front and center to battle for his signature. Mikel Arteta is keen to add even more firepower to his squad. And when you think about it, Arsenal make perfect sense for a player in Barcola's situation. Arsenal are competing for every major trophy. They're a Champions League club. They're based in London, which is one of the most attractive cities in world football. And crucially, they can offer him regular playing time. Now, let's talk about what Arsenal would have to pay to make this happen. The reports describe this as a potential record-breaking deal. That's significant language. Arsenal's current transfer record is £72 million, which they paid for Nicolas Pepe back in 2019. So we're potentially talking about a fee that exceeds that. We're talking about a massive financial commitment. But here's the thing about PSG's stance on this deal. The current position of the PSG board is that they will not entertain a sale. They don't want to sell Barcola. However, and this is where it gets interesting, there is a belief that a big offer could change their mind, especially if Barcola makes his desire to leave more concrete. This is classic transfer negotiation dynamics. PSG are saying he's not for sale, but everyone knows that every player has a price. It's also understood that PSG are likely to make a move to freshen up their attack in the summer anyway. So even though they're European champions, they're not sitting still. They want to improve and evolve their squad. If they're planning to bring in new attackers, it becomes easier to let someone like Barcola leave, especially if Arsenal come in with a massive offer that PSG simply cannot refuse. Now let's shift our focus to Arsenal's current situation and why they want Barcola so badly. The Gunners currently have Leandro Trossard, Bukayo Saka, Noni Madueke, Gabriel Martinelli, and Ebereki Eze as their winger options. On paper, that looks like incredible depth. 5 quality wingers for 2 or 3 positions depending on the formation. So, why would Arsenal need another winger? Well, there are some important details to consider here. First, there are doubts over the long-term future of Gabriel Martinelli. The Brazilian has been a fantastic servant for Arsenal, but questions are being asked about where his future lies. Second, both Noni Madueke and Bukayo Saka prefer to play on the right wing. Having 2 right wingers competing for one spot is an ideal squad balance. And third, Ebereki Eze is at his best when playing centrally. He can play wide, but that's not where he's most effective. When you break it down like that, suddenly Arsenal's left wing position doesn't look as strong as you might think. Trossard has been excellent, but he's 31 years old now. Martinelli's future is uncertain. You need top-quality options in that position if you want to compete for the Premier League and Champions League. And that's exactly what Barcola would provide. The article makes a really compelling point about what Barcola could bring to Arsenal. It says that while Arteta already is one of the deepest and strongest squads in world football, there are still some gaps where he would rather have more quality. And left wing is certainly one of them. Barcola's arrival would provide that direct threat on the left, balanced out by the quality of Saka on the right. Just imagine that for a second. Barcola on the left, Saka on the right, with Martin Odegaard pulling the strings in the middle and Kai Havertz leading the line. That's an attack that could terrify any defense in Europe. The pace, the skill, the creativity. It would be absolutely devastating. The article goes even further, suggesting that this type of signing could win Arsenal the Champions League. That's a bold claim, but it's not without merit. Arsenal have been building something special under Arteta. They've got the defense, they've got the midfield, and they've got a lot of quality in attack already. But to take that final step and win the Champions League, you need genuine world-class talent in every position. Barcola would provide that on the left wing. The piece describes it as a type of signing that isn't possible every day. And that's absolutely true. Players of Barcola's quality and age profile don't become available very often. He's 23, he's French, he's playing for the European champions, and he's considered one of the best wingers in world football. These opportunities don't come around often, and when they do, you have to be ready to pounce. The money it would cost is only befitting of a real game changer. That's another key line from the article. Yes, Arsenal would have to break their transfer record. Yes, they'd have to spend a huge amount of money. But for a player who could transform the team and potentially deliver Champions League glory, it's money well spent. This isn't a luxury signing. This is a type of investment that could define Arsenal's next decade. And according to reports, Barcola ticks all those boxes. He's the game-changer Arsenal need. The article says fans would be absolutely delighted if he was wearing their shirt in 2026. And honestly, who wouldn't be? This is exactly the type of ambitious statement signing that takes a very good team and turns them into genuine European elite. But let's pump the brakes for just a moment and remember where we are in this process. Talks have been initiated. That's all we know for certain right now. Arsenal have made contact with PSG. Barcola is keen on the move. PSG have offered him a new contract, but he's considering other options. The PSG board say they won't sell, but a big offer could change their minds. There are still so many variables in play here. Will Arsenal make an offer big enough to tempt PSG? Will Barcola push hard for the move if PSG continue to resist? Will other clubs enter the race and drive up the price? These are all questions we don't have answers to yet. What we do know is that Arsenal are serious about this. Initiating talks with PSG shows real intent. They're not just monitoring the situation or expressing vague interest. They're actively trying to make this deal happen. And when you combine that with Barcola's apparent willingness to join, you've got all the ingredients for a transfer that could genuinely happen. Think about what this says about Arsenal's ambition under Arteta and the ownership. They're not settling for being a top four team. They're not content with just competing. They want to win everything. They want to be the best team in England and in Europe. And to do that, you need to sign the very best players. Barcola represents that ambition in human form. The timing of this is interesting, too. We're in January 2026, according to the article. The winter transfer window is open right now. Could Arsenal actually get this deal done in January? Or is this groundwork being laid for a summer move? The article mentions that PSG are likely to freshen up their attack in the summer, which suggests this might be a summer deal rather than a January one. But in football, things can move quickly when the right circumstances align. One thing that works in Arsenal's favor is Barcola's playing time situation. When a player isn't playing regularly, they become more open to moving. When they're 23 years old and should be playing every week, that desire to move becomes even stronger. Barcola has the talent to be starting every match for a top team. At PSG right now, he's not getting that opportunity. At Arsenal, he almost certainly would be. And let's talk about what he'd be walking into at Arsenal. This is a team that finished second in the Premier League, a team that competes in the Champions League, a team with one of the best managers in world football in Mikel Arteta, a team with a clear identity and playing style, a team on an upward trajectory. For a young player who wants to win trophies and develop his game, it's an incredibly attractive proposition. The fact that he's been described as a superstar is significant too. That's not language that gets thrown around lightly in football journalism. When reports describe a 23-year-old as a superstar, they're talking about a player with genuine world-class ability, a player who can change games single-handedly, a player who can produce moments of magic when you need them most. Arsenal have been criticized in the past for not spending big on that one marquee signing who can elevate the entire team. If they pull off this Barcola deal, that criticism disappears completely. This would be a statement signing of the highest order. It would send a message to Manchester City, to Liverpool, to every team in Europe that Arsenal are here to compete at the very highest level. So, where do we go from here? Well, we wait. We watch. We see how serious Arsenal are about making this happen. We see if PSG's stance softens. We see if Barcola pushes for the move. This is a story that could develop quickly or could drag on for months. But either way, it's one of the most exciting transfer sagas Arsenal fans will follow this year. The potential is enormous. The excitement is real. And the possibility of seeing Bradley Barcola in an Arsenal shirt, terrorizing Premier League defenses and lighting up the Champions League, is something every Gooner should be dreaming about right now. This is Arsenal Daily News, and we'll be following every twist and turn of this story as it develops. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any updates. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.